Welcome, this is Kevin. Hey, today I want to show how to take an emailed BlowPro data set and load it into a spreadsheet program. You can use similar process for a database. The key thing to note is that the way that the BlowPro readings are emailed, they come in as a CSV file. That's a comma separated value. It's fairly standard in industry, and this CSV for the reading set from the BlowPro allows the readings to be loaded into Excel or Numbers or common database programs. So anyway, here's the email here. It says the email will always arrive. It'll say BlowPro data set, and it'll be it won't have any content other than this BlowPro CSV edition. And so you can either double click on that. That'll usually bring up Excel, or you can just right click on it. It'll say open with. And I'm going to show two examples today. The first one's with Numbers. Numbers is the spreadsheet program that comes with the Mac. And I'm also going to show, after that, I'm going to show how you import into Microsoft Excel. And so anyway, open the attachment, in first case with Numbers. See, the attachment gets loaded. We get this welcome screen from Numbers, and you can see the BlowPro data it has been loaded in. This is a short data set, and it wasn't playing during this time. It was just ambient pressure, and so it's more for an example rather than showing like a 3-minute MSR, a 10-minute medley, or 6-minute medley, or something like that. And so anyway, there are 3 columns of values that get loaded from the BlowPro. The first is the date and time, a timestamp, then the actual pressure value. In this case 1026.17, and this is in hectopascals. It's a standard pressure unit. The units don't really matter because you're going to be, when you graph these, presumably you're graphing them, you're going to look at variations in pressure. And the third column, SPS, that stands for samples per second. And so you can see we have about 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 8 readings here of 2 samples per second. And the majority, then what happened, I changed to 20 in the BlowPro app. And so 20 samples a second for the next set of data. So there's probably only about 5 seconds worth of data in here, but it's good enough for an example. So anyway, once the data is in the spreadsheet, then you can take this column. You could take this column of data here, and you could draw a graph. And we're going to show that more in Excel than in Numbers, because I think Excel is more popular. Anyway, so let's get out of here. We'll close down Numbers, and we'll show the same thing with Excel. What I'm going to do is right-click on the BlowPro CSV, and then I'll say Open with Microsoft Excel. And so the same thing happens. It has, it's more basic in terms of graphical format and everything, but you can see the numbers got, or all the pressure records got loaded in. We have 220 of them. It's about, so at 20 samples a second, that's about 10 seconds worth of data. And so we have the date. We have the value, that is the pressure in hectopascals, and then samples per second. And most of them, again, it's the same data set, so some of them are at 2, the rest are at 20. So we could expand these columns if we needed to. Let's go looking in the date. And so what happens with the, now Excel and Numbers are different, and that these numbers, like this 5934.4, that's actually a date and time, but you would have to you'd have to set up Excel to get it to interpret it that way. Key thing is that, and I can show that afterwards, but key thing here is we're going to want to do an example. We're going to take all these values here and plot them. And so let's select all the ones that are 20 samples a second, so we have constant sample rate. Go right down to the bottom of the 10 seconds or so worth of data. And then what we can do over here, we could say we want to insert. We want a chart. So we could say, okay, let's draw a line chart. Just draw a simple line chart here. And see and then Excel does that for us, and you can see that our values are plotted. Now, what you'll notice about this, let's make this graph a little bit bigger. So these are all the pressure readings that are in column B of the spreadsheet there. What you're going to notice here is see all this variation. Right? Now, the BlowPro at this time, it wasn't somebody wasn't playing, but what it was just reading ambient pressure. And so you would think, oh, well, ambient pressure, the standard air pressure, it should be all the same, right? It should be fairly constant. But the thing is, the sensors in the BlowPro are, the electronic sensors are so sensitive that they sense very small variations in the ambient pressure. So that's why we get this graph that, even though it should be flat, right, because nobody's playing, it's just reading ambient pressure, we're seeing all this great variation in here. So you'd think, well, maybe that's a design problem, but it's, in terms of the export of the data from the BlowPro, but no, it's not. In fact, the BlowPro records data in this, highly sensitive format, and it smooths that data in order to present the deviation bars and to present the graph as it appears on the iPhone or the iPad screen. And so, so in terms of if this was somebody playing, they wouldn't see all this variation in the graph. They would just see a nice smooth line that goes through here because the BlowPro uses, it's called exponential moving average. It uses a mathematical statistical formula to smooth the data there. And so I can show you what that would look like. And so we'll show that in a sec, but I would say, when you look at this data, you import from the BlowPro, you think, boy, oh boy, it's all inconsistent. My blowing is terrible. That's not what it means. What it means is this is standard, fluctuations in ambient pressure, whether you're playing or not. And so we'll give an example, give an example of how we can smooth this graph. But I would say when you're doing your own work with the taking the values from the BlowPro, you're saving them. Don't worry about this because you too, when you're charting this, you should be adding some smoothing to that. And I'll show you quickly how to do that. What we can do in this case is let's go back up to the top. We'll have this column selected again, and so let's we want to do some analysis on this. We want to change chart type. We want to have a line chart. But what I want to do is I want to change the parameters about this. So we need to go to data. We need to go to data analysis. And see the number of these is standard with Excel, right? We want to have exponential smoothing. As we could do regression, some of these other things. What we're going to show today is exponential smoothing. So we'll say OK, and we want to take the input range is going to be these values that have been highlighted here in column B. We're going to have a damping factor. You can set that 0.5 to 1.0, and the output range we're going to put it in column D, and we're also going to select here chart output. And so what we're going to see when we click OK, we're going to see the original data, and then we're going to see a smooth line that has been added through this exponential smoothing on the graph. And that is more what you'd like to use, what you want to use if you're analyzing this data yourself. Now we'll make this, here's the graph. We'll take this thing, we'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. And notice that the raw values, the blue lines, have been replaced by this very, very smooth line, right? This much smoother line that does what they call exponential smoothing, and this is what the BlowPro would show second to second, in terms of if you're looking at the graph or you're looking at it would control the deviation bars. And so you might say, oh gee, well it's still not that flat. It's ambient pressure, but look at the scale. The scale of this line. It's going 1026.12 to just under 1026.18. And so if we were to zoom out on this graph, this line would be flat, right? And so anyway, we'll conclude this for now, but that is an example of how you take the BlowPro data set email that you receive from the BlowPro after recording your piping session, how you get it into numbers, how you get it into Excel, and then some very basic stuff about how you generate a graph and how you plot and how you do smoothing here. I think subject in the future, based on user interest, I could go more into this and talk about changing the scale here so that we get more accuracy, and I could also demonstrate this with some data from an actual MSR or MSR, a medley or something like that for a longer playing session. Anyway, that is it, and I hope you enjoyed the video. This is Kevin from Worldways, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.